Alright, welcome back, folks. Today, slightly different show, but mostly I want to look at a lot of these objects that recently we've been shooting down. And of course, we all know the first one, the Chinese quote here, spy balloon, and then another object that was found across Alaska. And then the third one that was found over the Yukon in Canada. And there's a little bit to go with that. So the first one, as we all know, was shot down by an F-22. Crap. Like a week ago now, I think, right? Like last Saturday, I want to say. Yeah, last Saturday. It says here last Saturday. So that was obviously a balloon. We saw it. We had better footage of it. Of course, we looked at it for so damn long. It's not surprising that, we knew exactly what it looked like. But here we've got, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said Saturday that an unidentified object had been shot down by a U.S. fighter over Canadian airspace on his orders. So he ordered the takedown of this craft that violated Canadian airspace. So NORAD Command shot down it over the Yukon. So I guess he called up on NORAD, which NORAD does look after North America. I know Canadian airspace. I don't know about Mexican airspace, but I know that they really focus on the U.S. and north of that. So, and that's basically just what this news story. I'll link this CNN article in the description. But this goes along with the 2022 report here, the annual report on unidentified aerial phenomena, and that's really what I kind of want to focus on today, because, there's a lot here to kind of unpack. So, if we just take a look at, if we just take a look here, we just passed the summary, but we just take a look under scope and assumptions. And by the way, this is available for anyone to look at. I'll try to figure out if I can't link this as well. But I guess a couple assumptions here. Multiple factors that affect the observation or detection of UAPs, such as weather, illumination, atmospheric effects, and the accurate interpretation of sensor data. Regarding review on analysis of UAP events, the ODNI and AARO operate under the assumption that UAP reports are derived from the observer's accurate recollection of events. So, so basically, they're just, there's basically an assumption on their part over some of these sightings. And now, with what's said in this report, kind of goes hand to hand on what they've said in previous reports. So, obviously, there are these objects out there, and a good majority of them are unidentified. Now, I don't know about the one that they shot down, the second one that they shot down over Alaska. I don't really know too much about that, but I do know that the second one is almost similar. Because this one, both of these two recent ones, they shot down almost immediately. Almost without hesitation, I want to say. Like, I think the first one, they waited 24 hours. This one, I don't even think they really waited an hour. They said the object was flying at an altitude approximately 40,000 feet, had unlawfully entered Canadian airspace, and posed a reasonable threat to safety of civilian flight. The object was shot down approximately 100 miles from the Canadian-U.S. border. And they keep mentioning it was a cylindrical object. They don't say spherical. They say cylindrical. So, like cylindrical, my first thought was cylindrical, as like a fuselage of an airplane? Or do they mean like here in this report where they talk about continue, where they made basically just this report is that they're just going to continue to just, a lot of this stuff just remains unsolved or unresolved. But mostly it's just like, we're looking at them. This is corporate speak. All this particular document, as I've read this a few times, all I really see that this document is just mostly corporate speak. They put a lot of words together in there, that we still don't have any more information than we did a while ago. Other than they're just saying that they're more coordinated now. So obviously, if we're focusing on this as a DoD defense strategy, obviously, having more people looking up at the sky is helping. Or if maybe recent breakthroughs in radar technology haven't maybe improved a little bit. So, but make no mistake that this document does say that these objects have been flying around in our airspace for decades. Decades. Not years, not months, decades. According to this document, which is an official intelligence document. It's an official report that they did just to satisfy, I guess, UFO enthusiasts. But more importantly, a lot of these organizations were set up just because, well, if what we're seeing is true, and Air Force pilots and radar operators, if they're also seeing this stuff showing up on their equipment, then obviously this is more serious than we thought. That's basically what's going on. And recently, now that this stuff is getting pretty serious, these last two objects were not balloons. They said that the second object was balloon-shaped, or the size of a car. But, I mean, that, is it cylindrical? Was it cylindrical like this object, or was it spherical like the balloon? Those are the questions I have, mostly. Let's see. So if we look at the report, just the NDAA, the subsection 1683, establishment of the office organizational structure. So requirement. So one would be requirement, no later than the 31st of October 2022, and the annual therefore after. This is basically just, they're trying to collect data at this point. Number two is elements. So all reported and unidentified area phenomena related events that occurred during a 1 year period. They're looking for, so the analysis of the data and unidentified collected through spatial intelligence, signals intelligence, human intelligence, and measurement of signature intelligence. So they're looking at they're looking at all of these, looking for patterns. And I guess now we're just going to start shooting down these objects. Just I'm afraid, are we just going to start shooting them down willy-nilly? Is that going to lead to other complications? Is there perhaps an airplane that flies over somewhere that may not be, maybe their transponder goes out? I know it, no one thinks about it, but what happens if some of your electronic flight instruments just kind of, stop working when you're mid-flight? And then, according to, and then, maybe your transponder stops working, so you're not putting out your signal, but yet their radar still is picking up an object. And, are we going to scramble the jet? Well, I mean, obviously you'd scramble the jets to see what it is, but are we not going to get close enough to see what it is and just shoot down one of these objects? And, are they exhibiting behaviors of UAPs in the past? That's my question. If it's an object moving at a relatively slow speed, how do you know you're not shooting down a cylindrical object? That's a fuselage of an airplane. How do we know that we're not shooting down civilian aircraft with people on board? Or maybe, what's the, can we really prove that we know the difference between, a high altitude weather balloon or just a regular hot air balloon that's, maybe not colorful, because there was a lot of people that were, willing to shoot this thing down with their rifles, and I'm like thinking, well, a rifle's not going to be able to go, a bullet's not going to be able to travel, at least in a straight line all the way up to, what was it, 60,000 feet? So, I mean, yeah. But, I mean, a lot of what this report is mostly just their annual report on what they've so far found. I think it was like 500 some odd actual reports, individual reports that they had, and then they kind of went through the list, and some of them were just kind of like, written off like, it's just space junk, or it was an anomaly of the eyes between them and an actual airplane or something. And that really begs the, and that's really what this document is, I think. It's trying to sift through some of these inaccurate reports, or reports where we might not have that much information. So, like, somebody somewhere in Texas spotted a weird cylindrical object in space. And so or something just, or a pilot spotted something while he was flying, and then they go to debrief him, and turns out it was floating debris, or if it was another, if it was one of these UAP objects, or if it was, let's say a Chinese weather balloon or Chinese spy balloon. Well, whatever the case may be, I'm just rambling now, but whatever the case may be, obviously with this document, along with what we've seen here, because if we continue just reading some of the, they keep mentioning spherical object, so, and, so the balloon was spotted after entering, so this is so our balloon, the one that was shot out of South Carolina, was spotted after entering the U.S. Air Defense Identification Zone over Alaska on the 28th of January. So before flying over Canada. And then the Department of Defense official told lawmakers last week it then re-entered the continental U.S. airspace 3 days later. Officials said that the risk of intelligence collecting against the U.S. was very low, while the risk to people and property on the ground, if the balloon were shot down over the U.S., was high. That's just why they didn't shoot it down over our airspace. But the second object was first spotted Thursday, and officials said that an F-35 fighter, so F-35s were sent out to examine the object further, and the object was flying about 40,000 feet, which posed a reasonable threat to the safety of civilian flight. So, I kind of almost want to call bullshit on that. Because the moment any airplane enters airspace, you're automatically subject to whatever the FAA wants you, or wherever air traffic control wants you to go. So, clearly, if this was a more unidentifiable object, as I've been kind of reading, because they didn't waste no time. It was like less than 24 hours, and they were shooting this thing down. Well, I find it interesting that they sent out. It makes sense that they sent out the F-35s. They already tested the F-22, so they got to test out their F-35s. They got to get those. They got to christen those jets. But so, in a statement Saturday, U.S. Northern said search and recovery operations were ongoing. And recovery activities are occurring on sea ice. We have no further details at this time, including its capabilities, purpose, or origin. So without even knowing what this was, what its purposes was, or its origin, they shot it down without hesitation. Most likely just due to the backlash that they received over the balloon that went over South Carolina. That's probably the only reason why they shot it down. But to shoot down an object of which you have no clue what it was, or what its purpose was, or even what its origin was, it could have either been junk, or it could have been something else. Obviously, they could have, hopefully they would have clarified whether or not it was an airplane or not. But then again, and like I said, with the whole, when I called bullshit about it was a danger to civilian flight, you can clear out an airspace, or you can divert planes. You can set an air traffic controller aside just to keep airplanes out of a certain area, just to have them turn in a different direction. It's basically just, and that's how it goes most of the time anyway. If there's if the Air Force is blocking off a section of airspace, then air traffic control would just divert those planes away. The planes are not alone up there. Even small private planes are not alone. And you may need to, some small airports, you may need to kind of announce yourself leaving, but that's still, you still fall under FAA regulations, and you still fall under air traffic control. You still have to report that you're taking off, and then once you get into the air, you pretty much have, they pretty much tell you, all right, as long as you file your flight plan, they know where you're going. Hopefully you know where you're going, and then they can help steer you in where you're going. So I kind of always, when they say, well, especially, the way they spoke it, so, it was a reasonable threat to the safety of civilian flight. And I kind of want to call bullshit on that, because if it, because, they clearly probably cleared other traffic out. And when they shot down this balloon over South Carolina, they just pushed a lot of flights back further from the coast. There was a couple videos that kind of showed that. They didn't really talk about it, but they kind of pushed aircraft off to the sides, because obviously they had a Sidewinder missile, but it's still right, literally right off the, still within our our airspace. It wasn't out of, because I think it's like 100 miles out to sea or something is technically still the U.S. Something like that. I don't know how that. I don't really know how they're doing it anymore when it comes to that. But that's that report. I kind of almost want to say it's useless, because that's even more corporate speak on top of what we're getting here from CNN. So, we got one balloon and two cylinders. So, I don't know, maybe we are at war with the aliens. And they don't want us to know. We're at war with ET. So well, here's another thing from CNN of here's what we know so far. So let's see what they know so far, which is probably not a whole lot. So the unidentified object that was shot down in Canadian airspace has been tracked since Friday evening. All right. And the object was detected by the North American Aerospace. It was detected by NORAD, and then they sent out 2 F-22 fighters. Ooh, more F-22s, right? From Ellendorf, Richardson, Alaska, from the joint base out that way. They're sent up to monitor the object with help of the Alaska Air National Guard. And then the object appeared to be a cylindrical object. Again, they're saying cylindrical object. Says right there. Smaller than the Chinese surveillance balloon that was shot down previously. So there's this another smaller object. Cylindrical in shape. Formation to further assess the object. So there's Canadian CF-18 and CP-140 aircraft joined in the formation to further assess the object. U.S. President Joe Biden and Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau both approved the shoot down on Saturday. It was about 40,000. This one again was 40,000, and they're also saying that this one obviously was another threat to civilian air traffic, and I kind of still want to call bullshit on that. You can tell a plane to change its course, and they have to abide by that. It's a symbiotic relationship that both the pilots and the air traffic control have. They need that communication, and they work together on a regular basis so that they can safely fly. So, as long as you're paying attention to this object, if you can spot it on radar, you can maneuver around it. It's not going to unless it changes its course or direction, which they're not saying in this. So, I don't know. A lot of us, this is starting to not make sense anymore. So, the first thing is balloons that we're shooting down. Now we're just shooting down. I want to almost just say that, instead of what Commander Fravor back in, a few years ago, instead of him seeing this tic-tac object bouncing around, are we just now going to start shooting these objects willy-nilly? That's what I'm afraid of. Because we shoot down one balloon, and then in a course of a week or two, week and a half, there's two more objects that we're just shooting down. There's more at play here that that they're not saying, because that's not even a typical, so they can't. I don't want to say that they're like balloons or weather balloons. I don't know much about balloons of this nature, but I assume that weather balloons or even spy balloons have to be at a considerably higher height. Because if at 40,000 feet and 30,000 feet, we can probably track it a lot easier than we probably could at maybe 60 or 70,000 feet. And that's just with basic civilian hardware. So, so the balloons would probably, they would have to be even higher, I would think. And they don't say balloons, they say cylindrical objects. So, and all this kind of coming on with China as well. So, I guess lawmakers have a high bipartisan hopes for China panel as tension rise. So they set up a committee, a serious committee, as so they're saying. Any committee's not serious. And that, that kind of makes sense, and that's kind of my fear, are we going to go to, is there going to be a conflict coming up here with China? There's a few generals that have said so. Plenty of people have, said that, they have predicted it. I hope that they're wrong. I really don't, because you got to think what a conflict between the U.S. and China would look like. Because no one really thinks about it. No one's really actually said anything. They just keep talking about how China needs to, like we need to control China. But I'm like, all right, so do y'all realize like where we get like a lot of our stuff? Like literally everything in the frame of this camera right now says made in China on it. These 2 monitors on my main computer, made in China. Half the components in that big case right here, made in China. This laptop, made in China. Tablet, made in China. I mean, it's everywhere. Maybe not the lamp. The lamp was more or less something my dad made. But like this here, my mixer box, that's from China. My mouse, China. Let's see. Like I said, pretty much everything with the exception of maybe the PS5. And, because I don't know if that may have been assembled in China. But, I mean, hell, even the camera, the Canon camera, was, I don't know, actually, no, this was made in Japan, never mind. But the thing still stands. You look at almost anything you buy at Walmart. You look at almost anything you get on Amazon or, hell, Wish.com is nothing but crap from China. And Alibaba, China. And all these, everything we buy, majority of our house, everything's from China. And that's not changing. When's the last time you saw something actually made in the U.S. that you just didn't peel off the Made in USA sticker on it and you saw Made in China written, etched into the side of it? I don't know how many times. Hell, once, long ago, it was 12 years ago, when I worked at Maryland Plastics. When I worked at this factory, they made plasticware and all sorts of stuff, plastic cups, crap like that. I was in the QA department and quality assurance, but all I basically did was I took cups out of a box and I put a new sticker on it. Well, the old sticker on the cups said made in China. And I figure that the new labels that we were slapping on this stuff, I figured that it would be, nope, the new labels we said made in USA. I'm like, this kind of seems a little false advertisement. Like, how illegal, like, is that even a legality thing? Like, to, scratch off the made in China part on a product and slap on a made in USA sticker on it. That's where we're really come to in our society. So, and I guess that probably makes a lot of people believe or think that a lot of stuff comes from America, when not really a lot of it does. Yes, there's a lot of manufacturing facilities all across the U.S., but 9 times out of 10, about 80 to 90% of the things in your house, it's all made from China. It's all made in China. Even Chinese knockoffs are now being Chinese knockoffs. So it's just like this whole list. So, because I find it kind of funny. I just find it funny. Like we don't think about this sort of stuff. It would absolutely devastate our economy, absolutely decimate it. Because for one, we wouldn't have the, we wouldn't really have the resources to start setting up factories, and obviously some of these companies might go a different direction, but it definitely would take a while. I don't know if there's a lot of companies out there that would be able to fill a void if we were to suddenly go at war. Because obviously, if the moment, we're putting sanctions on China and we're blacklisting certain Chinese companies, that alone is going to have a significant impact on our economy. And the more that we do, they're probably going to turn around and slap a bunch of sanctions on us. It's just going to make sense. Or they will just stop, they'll just, stop their boats from coming over here. That's as simple as that. That's how simple that can go. They just keep their boats from docking at their ports. Like, that's one thing people don't really realize is, China is almost 100% completely opposite of that of the U.S. Many people talk about their economy being a hybrid form of communism with capitalism, or that they're just straight up capitalists, which is false. If you look at a lot of their government doctrine, it's very much Maoism, or it's. If you look at a lot of their doctrine, it actually is more Leninism and Bolshevism than it is Maoism, and it even more so. If you look at their 5-year plans or their 20-year or whatever, a lot of that stuff is set up in like a weird timeline. So. I have no idea where I was going with that. So here's, I guess, a short video. Might as well make myself really small. Make myself smaller than normal. It's good enough. I'll make myself smaller than normal. I'll be really small today. We'll watch this here video. See,
Welcome to Who's Talking. We have two things in common, and I bet you don't know either one of them.
Do I get a hint? I don't think I chose the universe. I think the universe chose me.
Who's Talking to Chris Wallace? Sunday nights at 7 on CNN.
Chris Wallace.
I'm going to ask you a question that I assume maybe is tough to answer. But based on the description we have, this is the size of a small car. It was about 40,000 feet, non-maneuverable. And when people hear small car, don't think of the density of the car. Think of just the size of it. Is there anything that you think that this could be, likely is, we can rule out that this item was?
Yeah, that's a great question, Victor. I think that, one of the possibilities might be that it is actually a weather balloon, so that we can't rule that out completely. The key thing that I focused on was that apparently this object did not have the kind of connective capability that the balloon did. So that becomes a very different issue. And, to what Major Lyons was saying, there is a big difference from an intelligence collection perspective. It actually is okay in some cases to collect the information, see how it actually talks to other entities. In this particular case, you have a bit of a different situation where it didn't talk to anything, but you don't know what kind of a threat it poses, except for the fact that it is a threat to commercial aviation.
All right, I felt like I learned nothing from that. So never mind on that one. So I was going to read something from the state here, but they actually, they want me to, I guess, buy a subscription, so no. I guess we can look at some fact checks on the Chinese spy balloon. It's not every day that a Chinese spy balloon is spotted flying across the United States. No shit. Well, when the Pentagon announced February that February the 2nd, that a Chinese surveillance balloon had been seen hovering over the Northwest, the news unleashed a torrent of questions and political rhetoric. But how much of this chatter is just hot air? I believe that they used helium in the balloon, but alright. I believe helium is more stable than just regular hot air. Yada yada yada. Bunch of claims about. So what is PolitiFact actually saying? claim a vigilante shot down the Chinese spy balloon in an extraordinary act. Well, obviously this was false because we saw the Air Force shoot it down, and they claim they shot it down. And we know that the Air Force F-22 pilots are probably, they're probably boasting that. He probably got like his bottle of champagnes, and he probably got an F-22, another F-22 pinner, or maybe got some special accommodation or something. I know they put a sticker on the side of his on the side of his plane of his kill. Let's see, another claim. Former President Donald Trump created a Justice Department task force to combat Chinese espionage in the country. And, well, I think that was one of those half false things or whatnot. It's just that I think it's not that Joe Biden shut it down. It's just the fact that task force kind of changed over, or they redeveloped it. Because I think during Trump it was mostly NORAD Northcom. And too much to read. Too long, didn't read. Satellites are on balloons and not in space. I heard this one. This one was actually kind of funny, that thousands of satellites have been launched into space by rockets since the 1950s. Satellites can remain in orbit in space when the momentum up from the rocket launch and the pull of Earth's gravity is balanced. So, high-altitude surveillance balloons, such as the ones recently discovered in China, are different from satellites. Yeah, obviously. So, when I first heard that, I was like, do people think that, like, satellites are balloons? Is that what they think? So, like, that kind of confused me when I first saw that, like, last week. Another claim, the Trump administration failed to capture 3 spy balloons. I am starting to get really tired of hearing Trump's name. It seems that both sides, both the left and the right, want to kind of keep bringing him up for some reason. And I'm just sick of hearing that name. I am absolutely sick of it. I was like, can we move on? Apparently not. Of course, I think CNN and both CNN and Fox, they're really bad on that. Neither one of them wanted to let any of that go. So what happens when you have a 24-hour news cycle and you run out of stuff to talk about, even though there's really not any need to run out of stuff to talk about? We could discuss world news instead of this stupid shit to boost up what? Ratings? Come on. All you do is read a teleprompter. Another claim. Biden waited to let China collect all of its information from the balloon before it was shot down. This I know actually was more or less false. He had, like, when the DOD was, when they knew about it was over Alaska, So they were watching it since then. And even though, and they were blocking a lot, they pretty much were watching this thing, and they blocked any transmissions that came from it. So, so when Biden was briefed, he asked for military options. A senior defense official said on February the 2nd that a strong recommendation of his military commanders was not to shoot it down while it was overland due to safety risks of people on the ground, which makes sense. You don't want to shoot down random objects, especially that are rather large, with large, heavy equipment that will undoubtedly maybe not come straight down. Kind of a guess as to where that might land. But as well as the balloon itself, the fabric from the balloon, since they shot it down, that's obviously going to come down slower and not near the other pieces which you shot down, which happened anyway when they shot it down over the the water. So you could see how that debris field, how the spread out that was. I haven't seen any like detailed reports on the debris field. Obviously, they're probably keeping that on the hush hush for right now. But they, I guess, they say here other precautions were taken to minimize any additional intelligence the balloon could get. Obviously, when it crossed over its sensitive sites. I've seen a couple a couple good memes on that as well. The surveillance balloon contained deadly explosives. And of course, this is unconfirmed. But I also don't like these types of... I don't really like these types of posts that people post, because that's just more or less... It's rallying fear. And I've been seeing that a lot lately on both Facebook, on Twitter. I see that on the regular news, So, because there's another report I picked up off the internet. You can go from the same website of the Department of the Intelligence, and is basically just the national intelligence estimate on the economic and national security implications of the COVID-19 pandemic. And this goes all, just all the way up to 2026, by the way. And boys, they're quite a bit redacted here. Mostly names and phone numbers, but quite a few pages here where there's paragraphs of stuff that's been redacted. So that's interesting. But not related to this. Well, kind of. You can kind of draw a correlation between the two as their intelligence gathering. But, I feel that there was a level of fear that played in with COVID that we hadn't seen for a long while. This is basically just this is just basically just fact-checking actually misleading stuff. Because, they cannot confirm nor deny that it had explosives on it. They make an assumption like that, a potential like that could exist. But that doesn't necessarily mean you need to be afraid of the fact that there's, that it can actually contain an explosive device. Now here's another story I saw. There's two more stories I kind of wanted to talk about, or three more actually. We could, I guess, we can kind of mention Turkey for a little bit. So as the number keeps rising, I think it's, the number of people over there is just rising. The death toll now is like 28,919 with another 80,000 injured. That is just terrible. So now Turkey is looking in on, and I don't know how I feel about this, but Turkey's justice ministers vowed to punish anyone responsible, and prosecutors have begun gathering samples of buildings for evidence on materials used in construction. The quake were powerful enough, but victims... The quakes were powerful, but victims, experts, and people across Turkey are blaming bad construction for multiplying the devastation. And if it was bad construction, then yeah, I almost 100% agree that, if these buildings were cheaply made, like a lot of buildings here in these states are, then yeah, they should be held criminally responsible. And if something similar like this happened in America, you can see that no one would be getting in trouble for their engineering. And if they were, like maybe one or two people would be pegged as the bad guy instead of maybe a larger group of people. like they're doing it in Turkey. Because looking at some of this destruction is just absolutely terrible. You know, and if these buildings were built cheaply, I don't know, like, if Turkey gets earthquakes on a regular basis, is this just a fluke that maybe they weren't thinking about earthquakes when they built these buildings? I don't know. Like, this is one of those stories, I don't really have a feeling on this. I can go probably either way. I would need a little bit more knowledge and information here to make a better decision. Well, that mostly leaves it open for you, whether or not you think that they should go after building contractors for, you know, making buildings that just kind of collapse when the ground shakes a little bit. Which, don't get me wrong, a 7.5 magnitude earthquake is not something small. It's quite significant. You know, it's... But... just reading a lot of what's going on over there is terrible. There has been some few good things that have come out from it. But... a lot of people dead and a lot of destruction over there. Hopefully, you know, we can get some good story. Hopefully, we can get some good news out from it here in the future. And the next thing is Hogwarts Legacy. So I really didn't bring this. I hadn't really brought this up yet. I was gonna, like, I did have a video where I talked about this, but the audio for it sucked so bad that I had to kind of just delete that video. But basically, excuse me. So basically, just, you know, just because of J.K. Rowling's controversy, a lot of bad things have happened. But there's been a lot of cyberbullying going on people's on Twitch accounts. Now, I've seen a few playthroughs. I've seen a few playthroughs on YouTube. I think one was a Twitch stream that someone did. I didn't really see any bullying on that. There was another YouTube video I saw. It looked more or less like, you know, I didn't know about what their Twitch stream said. I just know what the comments underneath the YouTube video, which are not all that bad. And mostly just people liking the game, you know. Obviously, you know, I mean, I've been playing the game so far, and I absolutely love it. And I've never, you know, I'm somebody who, for the first time in a long time, I actually sat down last night and watched the whole first Harry Potter movie, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. The first time I actually seen that movie in a long time, and there's a lot of parts of it I kind of don't even remember. So, you know, because that was the only other movie I can remember that I've seen from the Harry Potter canon was Wonderful Beasts and Where to Find Them. I think I watched that movie with a friend, a very good friend, a couple of years ago, actually. But, yeah, no, this, I mean, I've been playing the game so far. I don't really know kind of where I'm at in the story. I think I just entered fall in the game. So, and so far the game is actually pretty good. Got no complaints from me. And I guess the last thing we can talk about here, and this is more or less going to be a rant for me. And this is kind of I think this might be unrelated to what I'm about to talk about, but in a way it probably is kind of related to it. So Amazon's the latest threat to Facebook as ad targeting suffers. So yeah, I think this is completely different than what I was going to talk about, but mostly it's about the same. Recently on YouTube, I've been getting nothing but like actual videos as ads now. And here recently, I've been getting nothing but like Ponzi schemes, pyramid schemes, MLMs, just all this weird, like, I've never gotten this amount of scams as an ad before. I'm getting, you know, like, these are actual legit scams. Like, you know, like, oh, here, you know, if you do this, you know, for so long, like, or no, the best scam is, or the best thing they got going on now is, trying to get everyone to be an Amazon marketplace person, like drop shipping. That was a big ad that was running for a while. Work from home ads, those are everywhere. Stock market scams, a shit ton of those. But also, along with that, the length of some of these ads are becoming quite atrocious. So I've always complained about the 5-minute ads, and recently here, you know, like, I kind of wish I'd been getting more of the 5-minute ads, because now I'm getting 10-minute ads, 15-minute ads, I'm getting 20-minute ads. Hell, there was one ad my dad got that was like over 30 minutes long, and I've gotten 29, 30-minute long ads as well. So, you know, like, what is going on over here on Google, you know, and what's going on with their ads? Because, you know, it's like, I'm just getting full on, like, before, you know, yeah, it was they're advertising their scam or whatever, like, you know, it's like, hey, you know, like that whole, like, buy my book and learn my secrets, you know, scheme, you know, snake oil salesman type stuff. Now I'm just getting just straight up videos, you know, other people's videos. So something obviously is going up with Google ads. I guess now you can just advertise just anything you want as long as you can afford it. And I guess they recently changed up some things. I don't know what's going on over on that end of the things. I've never actually put up an ad on Google before, so I'm just kind of curious whether or not you've been getting, you know, ads like this in the past, where, you know, it to me, like, it just starts off as, you know, it just comes off as like Ponzi schemey, you know, or pyramid scheme type stuff, or MLM. Just basically just put scam right out at the end of the gate, and that's what I feel like that all I'm getting is on my ads is scams. So hey, let me know what you think about that. News has certainly taken a wild spin, you know, like with the CNN stories, you know, and Forbes not helping out. Bloomberg definitely not doing justice out there. But just all these other small news agencies, you know, and AI coming up on the rise. I wonder if that's going to have a play in what we're seeing here on the internet soon. Just, you know, it's just starting to become a scary world out there, because, you know, like, I read the news on one thing and they're saying, you know, it's the end of the world and whatnot. I go outside and I look outside and it's, well, we're still here. I'm still here anyway. A lot of things not really making sense. You know, we're shooting down unidentified flying objects in our airspace. We're you know, like, we're all sorts of weird crap happening out there, and it's, you know, On top of that, we're cyberbullying each other because people like Harry Potter. You know, and if anything, it's probably the most innocent, I don't know. Shit out. Anyway, that's all I got for today, so let me know what y'all think about all this. Just leave a comment down below. Tell me what your thoughts on the current state of the world. It's starting to get scarier, you know, like when I did the video last week about the missiles, or earlier in the week about missiles, Chinese missiles and hypersonic capabilities. A lot of that stuff, you know, it is what, you know, I guess we're entering a new age here, you know, like we surpassed the missile age, and are we into the balloon and hypersonic vehicle age now? Like, what's going on? So much going on out there in the world right now. We got so much, and it's not getting any better. So that's all I really have for you today, folks. Like, comment, subscribe. Try to have yourself a good day. I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye, folks.